Hello, and how are you today? My name is Reverend Maria Arvanitidis, and I'm so glad that you can join me on this Sunday, May 9th, 2021. This is a audio-visual version of my novel that consists of 852 pages named after my ministry, TheSovereignLight. TheSovereignLight, a course in metaphysical spirituality. And what a beautiful day for a bike ride. And won't you join me here today from Excerpts, pages 501 all the way to 503. We're almost halfway, perhaps even more so than anything, through this novel. And I'm so glad that for those of you who wish to start from the very beginning, you can join me on Patreon. My creator's name is capital R, small m, capital A. And you can find me there, and with a subscription, you can, I think it's $7 a month. And you can find me there, and all the packages, the whole from day one all the way to as we're going along. If you want to sample any more of this, you can find me on Love's Creation Unlimited, and won't you join me there? And if you feel like contributing in any kind of way, oops, the wind might blow. The wind might blow the computer down. I'm working from a laptop, and I'm still using that, what do you call it, that Photoshop. And you can always donate down below. This sample here you will find perhaps either on Vimeo, and sometimes you can find me on BitChute, and I'm also on Libri, and also Odyssey. You can follow me there. Why don't you join me and subscribe to that channel? It's free, and so is this, but feel free to donate. The donor box down there for the my YouTube channel, so I can keep going. Either way, however you feel like doing this, it can be free. This right now for you, you can feel free to sample, and always you can join me on my Facebook group, The Sovereign Light Ministry. You can find me there as well. All right, with that said, my name is Reverend Maria Arvanitidis. How do you do? And won't you care to join me by taking a few deep breaths in and just bringing it out? And I think that this sleep mode thing, I might be able to resolve it by going in and changing the settings too, so that it doesn't fall asleep for another half hour next time around. But for now, we will continue on to day 183, lesson 159, and we can begin by doing this by centering ourselves. And when we find that stillness and let that sink in, that place of peace that we can trust to surrender in the purest of certainty, coming home to our alignment and letting everything connect from there. And just vibrate that out through your heart space. This is what biologically we're made of. This potential that connects to God and the divinity of self-expression through this inspiration that we feel when we feel passionate about things. And so take a few deep breaths in and just concentrate on the straightening of yourself and the alignment like a pencil would go right up here from the top of your crown where the fontanelle might have been. Now it's a sagittal fissure because it's closed, and all the way down. Sometimes if you want to get deeper into it, you close your eyes, you roll your eyelids up, and you place your tongue at the roof of your mouth, and you access your third eye, and then you can go into a deeper trance, an alpha, theta, if you will, hypnotic, suggestible state that you can slowly bring yourself going down and feeling yourself sinking in, and just roll your eyeballs down like you would be looking at a flight of stairs going down, and feel yourself with each step sinking in further and deeper. Once you finally made it down those flight of stairs, you can begin to look straight ahead and just listen to the affirmation and let it activate synergistically throughout your day, and see what you can get from the receiving of it, that you may transmit into your reality to reflect back at you so that you can learn from it. And just breathe that in. See, contraction of the self, and as discussed previously, it has served the self-awareness well in its application. The mind likes to go on in its critical and mathematical process, and is exactly in the way a game of chess can be played. You can repeat the following after me and see what you can get. Ready? Sounds good? I fully release the need for approval from other people. I fully release the need for approval from other people. I fully release the need for approval from other people. I fully release the need for approval from other people. And the game of chess is within duality, concept, and thus within this world of the self-contraction and expansion. To allow for the mind to think and strategize a plan forward to predict in this way the outcome of the self is all about contraction. Find it in the narrow-mindedness of the details. And just like, with blinders on, we focus and we set an intention and how we're going to work it within the details. This brings on contraction. This is the mind that convinces the self upon reading its circumstances outside of itself to claim to know it all. A mathematical mind comes up with knowing so certain of its programmed outcome that it convinces the self and the heart, its heart, to feel in the way from this approved state of being, to follow along, and whether it likes it or not, to grin and bear it. So we come to the understanding that we are compromised by our own mind and standards of the ego-driven world that we all hook into as the collective hive mind. And with that said, someone's holding the agenda. Is it us? Or are we just going along with the crowd to feel the comfort, to feel safe and protected? In rejecting the inner for the outer, we discover outcasting to exist. To disconnect can be good when the need to take in a better view. Going back outward as to search for this meaning to connect again is where the falsehood can come into play. We all want to feel like we belong. We all want to feel loved. We all want to share things together and be understood and have some relevance and some value and feel needed. We all want that. I certainly haven't stopped. I mean, it's the human condition. And so how do we claim ownership? How do we master over this illusion? Well, it takes a lot of practice. With these mirrors that reflect back to the self the unfairness it has caused. In seeking to belong to this illusion, the self can give away its power to the creation, away for approval to be given it back, and in small increments at a time. A complete deprivation that creates delusion, that creates mental illness, that creates grandeur of augmented proportional distortions of how we see ourselves and others, and how others see us. A total mistrust from the disconnect is the outcome and the symptom. And in not knowing it is the creator, it can pinch itself off to begin with. The disconnection and that of distortion for the self to accept an outward circumstance. So it's like the same, when you put this blindfold on and automatically you sense the off balance, how justice can happen. It's never balanced. This is why the symbol of this unbalanced scale. And so we fight and resist, and the more we try to persist in creating a reality that's caused for a lot of resistance all around us, the longer it's going to take, because it's inner conflict that we haven't integrated and accepted. So whatever we dream of in our imagination, if we want to share it with others, we cannot force it on them. We can only open that for them to feel it when they're ready to feel that frequency, and then perhaps see us in their world. But we cannot force it, because this is what's been happening in our world. This is what's created the scales to go like this, because there's a lot of disempowerment from enforcing and oppressing and the backlash or lashing out is the revolt from it. And we've been getting a lot of war a lot of war and conflict and all these things that are happening because of it. So once that need for imposing and on someone else's will to enforce them to be a certain way, once that stops, then there'll be no more enemies, then there'll be no more war, then there'll be no more illness. It's as simple as that, isn't it? But how do we do it? So the longer it will take for our dreams and our imaginations to come to fruition, if we want those who are in resistance to join in, the first thing that we're going to get is hatred from them. Kicking and screaming. But eventually, you know, we think that it's us that created this. But in actual fact, we're predicting the outcomes. And it had absolutely nothing to do with it being our fault to the way things unfolded. And this is what it's called, you know, the prophet, or the prophet said this, or whatever, you know, prophetizing. This is what it is. Everybody has the capability to do that. It's from probabilities and outcomes. What is more likely to happen is what is impressed upon the most from the collective. And what they choose to believe in the ethers. Like, for instance, I kind of miss, you know, for the past few days now, I've been wondering, you know, remember those Jehovah Witnesses and how they used to impose their heaven-like state and frequency, and those beautiful drawings that they would come up with, these beautiful picture books. And it's like, why don't we come up with movies like this? Why don't these movie script writers or whatever, I know that they say, oh, it's all about the money and business and there's no money in this kind of entertainment. But what started this kind of illusion of the guns and the violence and sex and imposing their way of their whatever it is for us to look at when we want to just chill out and just relax and escape into some kind of thing that our imagination could bring. And somebody paid those kind of that kind of money to invest in to begin with, to start that cycle, to start that circle. And it's up to us to break free from it so that we can collectively start on our own positive imprints upon the ethers, and from our own imagination to co-create collaboratively for a better outcome, for a better world. And that's what the Jehovah Witnesses were doing. And I could name a few other colonizations of there's other denominations of Christianity that also, but Jehovah Witnesses is one of the most prominent ones that were showing a beautiful world, and were going out of their way to create that cycle, that vision, that from the imagination that we can all impress upon into our morphogenic field, so that we can create a world like this. And it is possible to do. And so why not create movies like that? And take those Jehovah Witness books and create scripts from them, and actually create movies so that we can all watch on Netflix, or that particularly that logo, that brand that Prime uses with the arrow like it's its dick. You know, it's a phallic symbol, and it uses it like it's a dick, and that's actually its logo. Can you imagine it, like me imposing my gender and feel that sense of entitlement to have a logo of a branding of a pussy? Wouldn't that be fucking insanity? That would be outrageously crazy. This is how narcissistic and psychopathic, this is what we're promoting. Because we have nothing else to fall into, and this is right before we go to sleep, we want something to escape and to just let it go and relax. And we fall into this, and we choose, oh, because it's 1 month free, and then, oh, you get to watch all these things imposed on you because it's of our choice, because we're doing it. And then we're slowly compromising, and then slowly compromising, and then it gets more and more. I know some men are like, wow, yeah, you know, whatever, I've been called a witch and everything else, and so much hatred, because I'm just stating the obvious here. Come on. And even in the Bible, the Christian Bible, it says, do not worship me as an idol. Do not idol worship. And it anything but love. It never had any hatred towards women. It empowered women, if that. It just stated the obvious, that man and beast and the bestiality amongst them, when you know, and this is what we have to watch out for. But nothing about the purest of purity, okay? And this is, I'm just stating the obvious. You just did, you know, and you can awaken from the Bible, or you can become blinded by it. That's all. And so, and you can choose to take as many parables or whatever it is that you want and say the man, but all you're really introducing and entertaining are demons. You're not really, you know, you're not really doing any benefit or really empowering yourself. You're just going on a psychopathic ego manifestation of a world that creates war and bloodshed. And why? For what? For a falsehood of, what is this? The false matriarchy? Or some kind of bloodshed because, you know, you feel empowered by it, because that's power, because it brings you back to the Creator that gave birth to you. Come on. You know? So, men, you just got to really get with it and stop this nonsense. And no, you don't have to take everybody down with you. I could say a lot of things, but I don't really want to be considered as, I'm already, you know, I've already said enough and all I can really do is plant seeds, but this was way too much into the indigo side of things as a revolting or considered, you know, but this is where it's at. Sometimes you need a good slap upside the head, guys. And I'm not going to stick any more daggers anywhere in you, okay? So in rejecting the inner for the outer, we discover outcasting to exist. Yes, it's okay for you men to outcast and create colonies and all these things. But really, it's about inclusiveness. And this exclusion of I'm better than you, and women aren't any better following in your footsteps by doing this either. And they're not exactly the best role models to try and outdo you guys. And so this is all the kind of programming we're getting on media, television, and all these other things. And really, it's not really entertainment. We can do so much better. We are connected to that potential that is God. And that is the next thing that this agenda wants to disconnect us from. So it will have to be the splitting of the worlds, and this is where we're at. So going back outward as to search for this meaning to connect again is where the falsehood can come into play, with these mirrors that reflect back to the self the unfairness it has caused. In seeking to belong to the illusion, the self can give away its power to the creation, a way for approval to be given it back, and in small increments at a time. So I repeated this. This is going to be much longer than the Vimeo. So more than likely you'll find it on Patreon, and yes, I will broadcast it on Facebook perhaps, and then you can revisit on YouTube channel if you'd like. and most of the time I don't publicly broadcast it. I actually broadcast it in my groups, and then I also have another group called Spiritual Lesbians from Everywhere. And that hasn't taken on that quickly either, because of Facebook and all its little implications of, what do you call it, screening. You know, it has all these filters now that before it didn't, and it's like I have to approve things, and I have to, and it makes it so much more exclusive, to the point where it kind of doesn't, it doesn't show itself to everybody, and everybody who does join in doesn't really see everything that's happening, and so it kind of disconnects rather than connects, because it has a lot of screening, you know? It screens out so many things, and so we can belong to a lot of groups, and we can have a lot of followers, and you notice that it's all just very false bravado. It's very shallow, because it kind of, once you get in, it's kind of disconnects. It doesn't keep you connected to stay on, and it has all these other filters that they keep coming in to screen things out. And so let's keep going. I can't find the right word. A lot of people have been complaining about this, how they get thrown off of certain things and how they get screened out. And so let's keep going. In not knowing it is creator, it can pinch itself off to begin with. The disconnection and that of distortion for the self to accept in outward circumstance, so blindfoldedly dismissing for its own mess that the self has created, and to believe in the separation that these reflections are actually living out instead of it. So this is the matrix. So with that said, we go on to the next page. 502. I fully release all these stories, everything, even all these parables and these examples that perhaps can have me finding some things that I can relate or maybe bring up of my own when I say these words out loud, or think them or read them to myself throughout the day. I fully release the need for approval from other people. I fully release the need for approval from other people. I, Maria Arvanitides, fully release the need for approval from other people. And you can put your name into it and say, I, so-and-so, fully release the need for approval from other people. I fully release the need for approval from other people and demand it, command it to be real, and put some feeling into it. I fully release the need for approval from other people. And sometimes to live in the beingness as the observer, the self can watch the many and feel like it has nothing to do with it at all. It then questions its ability as a player for the team, and to which it might feel held accountable for being left out altogether. Sometimes our leadership qualities and characteristics will do that. When we find ourselves enlightened of the fact that we show and appear a leadership role, then others will be like, hey man, you don't deserve this. And says who? Says your game? Okay, so I will leave this game and create my own game or other games. And this is it. How do you get others to join in to play your game? And this is how it happens, you see? And so how do you get others to see where you're coming from? Or do you play along in this game that you have to earn, and sometimes not even in this lifetime? It has to go back to 3 generations before or something, because my grandfather was a funeral director and my great-grandfather owned a funeral home, and now I get to be a manager or an owner that's run by a corporation, and I'm worthy of this position. Bullocks. You're a slave, enslaved into a program of recycling and karmic wheel that keeps going around. How are you any better, dude? And so this is what happens. The game of chess is playing with these pieces, and the choice then remains with the self and its perception. To change its perspective, that it may find the way back to worthiness and become good enough to contribute in the self-expression again, in self-expression, meaning showing up as you, authentic, and in your own energetic signature imprint as you, and nothing else. Not trying to be something else to be accepted. So how is it possible for the self to constrict itself enough to fit into one of those many pieces on the chessboard so that it can play, and to oppose itself with a side to win and what side will lose? You know, I was thinking of those tiles that you see. I think they're called Roman or Catholic tiles. You see black and white patterning. And checkers is another one that goes in a diagonal way. I think it does. And so in order to accept being good enough, the clutter of perspectives within the mind must be dissolved. So today, find for enough excuses to sweep away from the contracted self and with its self-opposing sides, or opposing side. There could be many variations and splits. I mean, like, yeah, this would be a really good thing to do and take for another segment, and perhaps do a package, you know, go into some kind of, okay, so, for example, we can go deeper into why is it that you hate something? What is it that you hate? And we can do exercises on just this alone. Getting to know your hatred and embracing it and working through it is similar to another facet that would be grief. Hatred is just as potent. Hatred is just as powerful. And how we embrace it and work through it. This is something I was kind of looking at, coming up with a package to create a few segments and embrace this so that we may heal ourselves and the world from hatred, so that we may drown it out and clear it. And so this is something that I will be looking to in the future, to come up with some kind of package deal or something like that I can promote out there, or engage and share with you all, so that we can erase hatred. I don't know if, for lack of better words, to work through hatred like we would through grief, to embrace it and see what exactly comes up for us. This would have to be something that we actually just focus on target, on one thing called hatred. Just like similarly we would with grief. This is how powerful hatred is. It's as powerful as grief. And so this is something that no one has really taken on to consider and create packages to help ourselves and others to work through grief. There's many out there, many exercises, and much guidance and help, but not to work through hatred. And we have, Lord knows, God knows, Creator God being, higher self knows how far we've come to disconnecting ourselves and this thing that we have just face to face come so close to, feeling so much hatred for others and ourselves that we have to come up with some kind of cure for it. You see? And this is what I would like to work on and with you all, and something that I want to come up with later in the future to come. So for now, let's work through this, and this would be part of my ministry's objectives. It would be one of my on the agenda that I would want to do, to offer for you all these packages and and clearings and so on. And so today, find for enough excuses to sweep away from the contracted self and with its self-opposing side. The perspective is to feel like it has downsized with all its clutter, and it must sort itself out to a comfortable, clearer path of belonging for itself. The self must release of all its clutter so it can be able to expand again. So right before you start your day, just kind of meditate on this. And from this, these are just many samples that this book offers, and I can further expand on this book once I've come to the end of it all, and there's nothing left from this book, that I can start expanding more on the sermons and start expanding more on these ideas, and create packages and create healing circles, whatever you guys want to engage with. But more than anything, as I was saying, this is what we have to look forward to. And so for now, for this lesson, we're going to use our imagination, and we're going to do it by closing our eyes and take a moment to visualize the self and its shadow. Imagine the world as the chessboard. The darker side of the self playing off with its lighter aspect. The dark, dense pieces of contradiction it stands against to play off with its lighter, more righteous ones. And just try that out. And if you haven't already purchased a chessboard and pieces, you can also do that by taking it in actual fact and using it as an exercise to do this with, in a physical way of moving the pieces, and for each move to do that with. But for now, we just have to visualize within our mind's eyes our inner vision and project it as we would on a movie screen, and do it that way. So see the many functions of personal identity within these many pieces. Observe for all the subpersonalities that make up the identifiable team and the way they have been programmed to play on the board. All those finite pieces are being played by the source of infinite self. And from this perspective, like an avatar would, or like you would be playing with those videos, observe how it applies to the self and its world. All those finite pieces that are being played by you from this perspective, how does it apply to you and within your world? Then open your eyes and repeat the following affirmation and go about the day with this perspective. So this is remote viewing. This is how we practice to get into remote viewing. But we're doing it more by impressing onto the screen rather than receiving or trying to predict things that, to see things. We're projecting rather than receiving. So we're doing it in a proactive way more so because we're still learning. So this is very simple and basic, how we're already conditioned. And this is a very great tool, structure that is already implemented in our conditioning that we may use to simplify and get us going in the right direction. I fully release the need for approval from other people. Wow, this is a lengthy one, so it's absolutely not going into the Vimeo. I fully release the need for approval from other people. During the day, yield for some personal space and harness this space to assess how it feels to be aware of self's power, and or maybe how much it might be giving it away, or in the guilt or shame of it that it hasn't cleared away from that program, that it might be denying it to be, go on, dismissing it as being silly. What a silly thing. And allowing the more sinister reality to take hold. Rather than the other way around. So, how does this feel? Adjust your power, leverage it. And these are the indices of leveraging and where it is that you can accept or not accept your power. Then, at the end of your day, evening, however you might see it, some people do night shift, because time is just but a marker. So this is to help through the disciplinary assessment, to reassess with the same chessboard visualization as it was done in the morning before you started your day. The exercise might be longer this time and will involve all the interactions and situations that the self had experienced with the many of itself. Everybody that you've engaged with throughout the day and the various outcomes that came from it. And how does the self feel from its day? What has caused it to feel like this? Does it feel its power, or does it feel worn out? Are you feeling your power? With it, the many facets of this power to identify in observation can clear and help bring to a closing as many the gaps it might have missed before. The game eventually will completely dissolve when the emotion or thought that kept it separate and miles away. Outside of the self is this identifiable power. When once unidentified to be of the self now can become expanded when it is realized. And then it won't fit in. And it will feel that pushback and hatred. And this is something we also have to, I have to create some packages for us all to help dissolve and work through, as we would with grief or any other powerful emotion that causes, it's like a cluster of emotions that causes grief. And it's a cluster of situations and programs, again, that cause hatred. So, the purpose is to acknowledge that there is no path to the self-approval, and by feeling the self-approved is the path. And that's the purpose. That's the purpose for today, is to acknowledge that there is no path to self-approved. And by feeling self-approved is the path. So this path that I'm on, it's not about approval for me to be on it. It's me feeling self-approved that brings me on it. Whatever I approve of, I deserve. And that's my worth. Simple, eh? Not quite. But this is where it begins, by acknowledging it and accepting it. And not so much about having to take action, because that's a revolt. Taking action like you would like a tiger, rawr, that's called revolt. That in a human kind of way is revolt, or they call it resilience. You don't have to do that. You can do it so subtly, like every day. Take little steps at a time towards your goals. Your goals are your dreams, and your desires are your passions. The passion that you have is being driven by your dreams, your desires. Okay? And each and every day you take a step closer to it. Not everybody has the luxury of finances to kind of boom, there it is. And we work and we sidetrack and we do other things so that we can come back and infuse it. It's like a transfusion. Like you would with these injections, these vaccines. You can't expect to be right away with one transfusion, with one transmission to be immune. That's only good for 2 months. Then you need another infusion to keep you going. Same thing with your dream. This isn't somebody else's dream that they have to inject into you. This is your dream. So this is from your imagination, and that's what it is, imagination. And so you don't have to kind of, all like they say, take action. You don't have to take action unless you don't do anything about it, and finally it hits you over the head by a 2x4, and then it takes action on you, or you have to fight or stand up and take action on it. You see, if you from day one keep on your course and you keep moving forward step at a time, then you're dancing with it. You're dancing with the infinite, you know, in the divine momentum. So you, that's all. So you know, sometimes it can get really discouraging when some of these people are like, you have to go boom, you know, and you gotta go boom. So you don't really. This is, you know, I mean, you can be a passive aggressive all you want to in life. Or you can just do like step at a time and work on yourself and do the work, the inner work, and the outer work will follow. And this is how it's done. And yes, we do things. We don't just sit there. Like, you know, we always are active. Everything has to be in moderation, and everything has to be in balance, and everything happens and unfolds in perfect timing. Okay. So this is something that hopefully can reassure and build on your confidence and self-esteem, what I just said. And with that, let's close off. I fully release the need for approval from other people. I fully release the need for approval from other people. I fully release the need for approval from other people. And encourage yourself throughout the day with these words that they may cancel out any discouragement of having to feel the approval from other people, and rather relying on them brings a lot of discouragement because of their expectations. So we must fully release the need for approval from other people. Thank you so very much, and I hope to see you again and again and again until we finish this lessons and we can start doing some more things, because as these lessons we cover, I uncover so many other things from them as well myself. And by the end of this book, you'll notice that the emblem on the back, for the fully complete version of the book, it will have turned into an oval from the spherical. So that you'll know what books have been completed and what books have not been completed. You will know at the end of it all, when the final chapters and everything else and it's done, and all 9 versions of it, the completed ones will have the oval of the emblem, the angel god. It's no longer going to be just an angel in a sphere. And so I really hope you enjoyed this, and whatever you might have felt from it, that's good. That means you can work on it, or you can pull the covers over your head or run away and say, what a joke, or whatever you want to say. Just don't choke on the joke. That's too funny. Thank you so very much. Until next time.